This is the latest episode of the Coleman Power Organic Fitness Podcast. This is an intro to the podcast you're just going to listen to directly after this 60-second pitch. We have Michelle Joyce coming on here, right? And actually, just as we were about to press record, we actually might be fourth cousins because my granny, his name is Joyce and is from Killa, and she's based in most certainly not a million miles away from there as well. Okay. So we have Michelle Joyce from Open Heart Farm, a female farmer that I cannot recommend enough. Right, so stay tuned to this week's episode, and thanks for listening.
And then I did some growing with Jim Cronin, and I did a course with him, and I kind of said, yeah, this is for me. This is something that fills my cup. I ended up wanting to work with horses as well. And I did with Festina Lente, so I did equine assisted learning, and I was introduced to the whole concept of biophilia, and I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is something I want to be more deeply involved with, and so the journey continues to where we are today.
Yeah, further expand on Jim Cronin for those who don't know Jim and what he does and the whole lot. When I do this, people are like, how do you not know who Jim is? So long-term listeners I ask and get the guests to do as much talking as possible. You guys are sick of me talking here every single week on the likes of this podcast. So just like at the weekend, I was asking Michelle, what's this vegetable here? And you're like, you know what that is, right? But tell me a little bit about you.
I was like, what? Yeah, so Jim Cronin is an organic grower in East Clare, and I would say a man of vast experience and wisdom. And what I did was I did a course through the National Organic Training Skill Net, NOTS, which is where I would have gone every fortnight for kind of 9 months to Jim Cronin's farm, where he would have had a group of us teaching. And I would say that's probably where I really started to connect with growing. And it was through kind of his passion and his knowledge where I got to see, oh, this is more than just about knowing, okay, this plant goes here. It was much more about knowledge. It was about intuition as well, and listening and looking at the plants and looking at the soil and really connecting with nature. And then from there, growing your food. So I guess that was kind of the real catalyst to me feeling, oh yeah, actually, I think I could give this a try. I think I could grow vegetables and start maybe selling them and kind of see and figure it out from there. That course with Jim Cronin and that time spent on Jim Cronin's farm in East Clare was the key to me feeling like, yeah, I think I can give this a go.
Yeah. What I actually love about you, Michelle, is, right, there was a point even that somebody asked about a couple of plants that were looking a bit sick, and me and you do that similar thing of, we know by looking at a plant how unwell it is. It actually be able to tell us when we look at it, oh, it's practically talking to us. It has that whole, when twisting, for people not watching this on YouTube, twisting and turning and putting its tongue out at the same time going, something's not right in the soil here, because plants can't move. They can't get up, they can't walk, they can't run away. They have to really signify in some way by putting their hand up and going, this isn't suiting me right now. You got to do something, or I'm not going to stick around here. I'm just going to die. Right? But there was something that, right, someone asked about the likes of the soil conditions there, and it was just the way that you put it in such a positive manner. Maybe you could further expand on that when you see an issue of a couple of different plants or a complete crop in itself.
Yeah, I think it's that's the difference between, you just walk out and you walk past the plants versus you actually look at them. You actually see what is happening here, and you see this plant as a being, and you kind of go, oh, okay, so what's going on here? What's happening in this space? So for example, when we had that group and there was this little plant beside all the other lettuces, and it was clearly like, I mean, I'm going to make that face, but it was like, it was really struggling, and it was smaller than the others. It was just really obvious to me, but maybe a few years ago I would have walked past it and not paid attention. But now it's about paying attention and noticing. And then you go investigate. So with the group, we investigate. So we lifted up the plant, we had a little look under the roots, and we learned by looking, we learned by experiencing that, oh, okay, this particular plant was in an area of compacted soil and it had a pest issue. So if we had walked past and ignored and just assumed, oh, this plant is just not thriving, and walked on, you wouldn't have learned about the conditions that that plant is in, and this problem would have continued. So now I can go, okay, why did that happen? What was it about how I was managing that bed that has contributed to this problem? What can I do going forward? So it's now about being far more observant and seeing the plant as a being, a living being in a living medium and a living soil, and then working with that as opposed to just walking by and being like, oh, it's not right, I'm moving on.
Yeah. And that's something that's you can only really teach somebody by continuing to look at a plant. Whether it's, I'm going to say, a tomato plant that has manure applied to it, that it was either too fresh, or examples of there may have been antibiotics fed to that animal, the leaves will start to curl and twist. And I do that same thing. And when I saw you do that, I was like, we're so on the same page. It's literally amazing, because plants will tell us without opening their mouth, right, that they are not happy.
Yeah, they're very honest. I think that's one thing, is they don't hide the situation. You know, that might be something with people, they'll just kind of carry on and do their best in a situation. But plants are honest. If it's not working, it's not working. They'll try their best, but you will see the signs, just like with that tomato plant with the curled leaves, and you say, okay, I can ignore this and walk by, or I can say, right, what's going on here? I can be curious. And I think that's what working with the land farming is about being. It's about being curious and observant.
How did you get into, I suppose, farming from, I'm going to say, the likes of the physiotherapy? And I know you most certainly have a background in farming, your father doing dairy farming, but more so lean into the fruits and the vegetables. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, I suppose as a child, my dad would have had a vegetable plot in the back garden. Like, I can remember the drills in the garden, and like they were massive, you know, when you're small and you're trying to step over them. And so that would have been there from the beginning. And then I guess when I kind of finished college, must have bought a few tomato plants. And for anyone who's grown tomatoes, you know that you either get addicted to growing because you've grown a tomato plant, or it's just suddenly not for you. It's kind of a yes or no. It's a defining moment in your life. Um, and like, I don't even enjoy the taste of tomatoes, but I am absolutely addicted to growing tomatoes. So that was kind of the first catalyst. And then as I started to grow things, and as I started to have people tasting the things I was growing, to see the reaction in someone who tastes homegrown food grown with care and attention in a way that's not mass produced, there is this like moment where you're like, oh, you know, and something within their body knows that this is good for me. And that's what caught me, you know, that like moment of like, oh, very similar to physiotherapy, you know, when you're working with someone and there's this moment where they get it and you're like, oh, they just got it. I think for me, those two things are very similar. You know, when someone picks up a tomato and eats it for the first time, they're like, versus the same thing when someone has a realization about their own health and well-being from a physiotherapy point of view. They're very similar. So I think they're the true threads that connect the two for me. And then I guess being able to grow food means I get to be outside. And I get to be immersed in nature. And that's something that's really important for my well-being. There's a big difference between, yes, it's not always nice and it's wet and it's cold, but there's a big difference between working in a hospital with maybe no windows in your office to working outdoors in a polytunnel. So they're kind of the reasons that pulled me away from physiotherapy working in a hospital into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Would you say that you're holistically minded, or someone that needs a certain type of daily outside activity for your own health?
Yeah, I would say definitely. I would say it's part of what keeps me alive. You know, if you can think of not just like, oh, I eat food to keep me alive. No, it keeps my soul alive. And also, I guess, coming back to that holistic concept, that's how my brain works. It sees the big picture and all the little details. So working in physiotherapy, it can end up kind of one track, not on purpose, but it just kind of tends, someone's coming to you for one particular reason, and you're trying to bring them into that broader approach, but they have maybe an expectation that it's one thing. And I guess this world allows me to kind of be very diverse. So I have the equine assisted learning side of things. I have the horticulture, and then I have this loving network of people now that I'm starting to be able to collaborate with out in the community that would never have necessarily happened with me continuing to work in the hospital in physiotherapy. So it's given me access to not only nature, but a community in a way that I didn't have before.
Yeah, and you still do the physiotherapy as well
Yeah, so I do a little bit of home visits.
in your spare
And it's
time.
kind of yeah, because we all have that few extra hours, but yeah, in my spare time, um, I suppose physiotherapy is important to me in the sense that for me, it's one of the ways that I learn to really deeply connect with people, and it's that I bring into my work here with people on the farm. So it's kind of a melting pot of all the things.
Yeah. Could you maybe further expand and unpack the difference between something that you typically grow, right? And I want you even maybe if we can mention, would you believe in the fact that if something is produced with care and attention and detail, that that's something, and as well as something that you also mentioned when I met you over the weekend, is you're literally connecting, right? The seed to the ground, back to the customer directly. You want, and just maybe expand on that point.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the key reasons why I'm really focused on that direct to customer route. Um, there is something really powerful about somebody knowing exactly where their food comes from, knowing exactly the route it's taking to them. So not everyone is going to be able to go out and grow their tomatoes. It's just not necessarily possible for everybody, but maybe they can know the person who sowed the seed, who planted the plant, who harvested the tomato, who put it into a little bag and handed it to them. And that can be that connection between that person and the land that their food comes from. I think that when we are deeply connected to the place where our nourishment comes from, we find well-being. And not only do we find well-being, but our communities find well-being and the planet finds well-being. That connection, that relationship between where our nourishment comes from and and us, all of that connected is kind of the key for me to well-being for us, our communities, and the planet.
And
So it's that thread of relationship.
And on that, your farm being named Open Heart Farm, how did you come up with that name in the first place? Tell me.
Yeah. So that was a long journey. That was years and years of tossing and turning names over and over and over again because I suppose Open Heart Farm has been a vision for a very long time. Um, And I guess I was walking the hedgerows one day. I was doing a little bit of foraging, and it's almost like it hit me like, when you have some loads of options in your head, and then suddenly something kind of hits you out of the ball, like out of the ballpark, boom. And it was almost like it was thrown into me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what it needs to be, Open Hearth Farm. And the reason for that is, of course, there is a fire pit in Open Heart Farm, which you all got to sit around because of the fire is a central part of our community historically. We would have all sat around the fire in community. It also has a lovely combination of words. So it has here, it has earth, it has heart. So it has lots of key words and key elements that speak a lot about what Open Heart Farm is. So it just kind of landed on feeling right in ways that all of the other options didn't feel like right, feel correct at the time.
Yeah. In top of that, I suppose, what produce are you currently growing at the minute? Just to tell and fill people in a little bit about what do you produce
Yeah,
and who you
yeah.
because a lot of people don't know.
So I'm growing no chemicals, no pesticides, and I grow a wide variety. So, if I was to say right now, if I cast my mind into the garden, I have cucumbers just about, they're nearly finished. Tomatoes, parsley in the tunnel and rocket in the tunnel, and then there's lettuce and spinach and chard, and there's lots of brassicas like kale, cabbage, there's Brussels sprouts coming along. The potatoes are finished, they're inside bellies all over the all over the area. Um, Pumpkins, they're ready now. So I grow a wide variety. Because I want to give my customers as much choice as possible. I want as much as possible on their table to be of local produce. So if I just grow one product, I just give them one choice. But by growing a wide variety, it allows me to give local people the choice. And it also really suits my growing system. I want to be able to rotate my crops around. I want to be able to maintain soil health and pick a selection of crops that are going to suit the growing conditions that I have. So it's kind of a balance of meeting the demands of the local market and also what suits my farm. And plus I like variety and I like the mix.
Yeah, I suppose on that point, right? A lot of people might start getting confused with the likes of maybe different words that people are kind of putting on labels and stuff like that. So chemical free, even further expanding that, why it's a little bit better for either us or the soil or anything around those topics.
Yeah, so I suppose for me, I'm using the chemical free, no pesticides, because I'm not certified organic. So I haven't gone down the route of certification and the administration involved in that. But for me, all of my practices are the same. So I don't use any artificial fertilizers. I don't use any chemicals to kill things. Um, I use different methods. So I use nets if I need to keep specific pests out. I use different crop rotation systems to manage pests in the soil. So I'm using all of those practices that are under the organic standards, but I'm not certified organic. So for me, that's what the difference is. I haven't done the hard legwork and the administration that all of those people who are certified organic have done. So I'm using the no chemicals, no pesticide a label, shall we call it.
Yeah, and fair play to you, because that's not easy to do that either. And you're doing it for the love of the land, as well as the connection with the best type of food you possibly can grow yourself to hand to people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not really about marketing for me. Like, it is about that I don't want to kill anything if I can help it. So I'm not interested in killing the pests with sprays and chemicals. I also don't want to be exposing myself to those things. And I don't want to be handing over food to somebody to put on their table that has chemicals and pesticides on it. Like, to me, that's like so not okay. So I suppose those kind of elements, what to the people that are eating the food, the soil that I'm working with, and me. So it's kind of all of those things coming together that are really important and are the reasons why I choose to use no chemicals and no pesticides. And there's the long term, like, I want the people after me to be able to farm this land, and I want to leave it in a way that's even better than how I got it. I got it pretty good, so the standards are high. But I want it to be even better again. So I need to make choices that are for the long term, not just the short term.
Yeah, and on that point, you're trying to make the soil better. You're trying to produce food that's chemical free. How are you literally doing that? What are you applying to the soil? How are these vegetables hopping out of the ground? You can have the lovely cucumbers in the month that we're in November, October, November. And after that, how would you have your tomatoes, your greens, also lush and green? Fill us in on that, Michelle.
Yeah, great question. Because it takes work. It doesn't happen just like you can yes, you can put food in the soil, but if you do it consistently, it's not going to work. You need to be managing your fertility. So I guess my horses are an important part of that process. They eat the grass in the field, they eat the hay, they convert it into poop, and I compost that. And I have manure, so a rich nutrient source for the soil, so I can incorporate that. I also use no dig practices as well, so I do a little bit of dig and a little bit of no dig, and I'm kind of finding my way as to what works best there. I do buy a little bit of inputs in terms of compost, just to get into apply to the soil. And then I'm using things like liquid seaweed meal, those kind of things to add fertility to soil, because every time I take something off, every time I harvest lettuce or harvest tomatoes and I sell them, I'm taking nutrients from the soil and I'm sending them somewhere else, and they're not coming back. We're not going to complete that cycle yet, maybe in time, but for now they're not coming back. So I need to find other ways of capturing nutrients and applying them to the soil to support the food and grow the food.
Yeah, I can think of it sometimes, Michelle, is the fact that literally it's like your bank account. You can't continuously take out and take out. Actually, for a small period of time until we hit the zero, and then we can get into the red, which some people also do, but I don't recommend myself. Yeah. Because when you do go into the red, just take the example of, you'll have crops that will be stressed. They will signify to you that leaves will be curling. They'll have pests. They'll have disease. And you can't literally keep doing that to the soil because you deplete it.
Absolutely. And it's similar to us. When we're stressed, we're under pressure, we're more vulnerable. We're going to pick up things much more easily. And plants are the same. And the plants live in the soil. So it's not really the plants that I'm looking at. I'm looking at the soil because that's where they live. So I'm managing the environment and letting the plants do their thing. If I can get those soil conditions humming, then the plants are going to do well by managing that environment. I'm a little bit like us.
Yeah, very, very true. So I'd love to even touch on the point of, I suppose, you being a woman in agriculture, or even specifically more horticulture. Right? We can maybe further expand on that.
Yeah, I guess it's something we hear a lot about now. Oh, women in agriculture, but women have been in agriculture for millennia. Um, and I was thinking about this recently because a customer came to me and her daughter was in the car, and her daughter wanted to see me because she didn't know a woman could be a farmer. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, that's like really, really important. Yes, women have always been in agriculture. They might not have been recently in the foreground or even in previous generations in the foreground, but they're like the organs, like they're there, they're in the background, there were, I know that my ancestors, they were women were milking cows by hand, Yes, the farmer may have taken and he may have been the one who was seen at the creamery, but it was potentially the woman who was milking the cow. So women have always had a place in agriculture, um, just not as visible. And nowadays we live in a world that's all about what can you see. If you don't see it, it doesn't exist. So I think that's where the push for women in agriculture is coming. That's where we're hearing it more because it is important. It's important that those little girls know that absolutely a woman can be a farmer. Um, Even in horticulture, I suppose that would be, we're seeing it a bit more. I feel like it might be an entryway more where it would definitely be easier for me to move into horticulture than to move into dairy, you know, simply because I can start in a small area and build. And I think that's where we're starting to see more women in agriculture there, in terms of being at the front line, not necessarily in the background. Um, so yeah, I think it's a really, really important that we speak about it, but we speak about it in a way where we go, oh yeah, this is not a new thing. Women have always been in agriculture, but now we're allowing it to be seen more.
Yeah, that's such a great point. They have always been involved in it. It's whether they were someone to do, I'm going to say that a lot of the heavy lifting, but the idea is they've always have been there, as you mentioned, right? And whether you know it or not, Michelle, you're actually a massive role model for people. And there's a pure example of that. A girl, a child, at whatever age she was looking to see you in person, because seeing is believing. And it's great that you give that opportunity for people to come onto the farm, just like you gave us at the weekend there. And fair play to you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks, Coleman. It's one of those moments where you get stopped in your tracks because you kind of go, oh, whoa, okay, hang on a minute. You kind of whoa, wow. Um, and it is really important because I didn't see women growing vegetables when I was younger, but it just kind of happened, that I am, for many reasons. But I hope that by speaking like here today and by just doing what I do publicly and being like, this is who I am, this is what's important to me, and sharing that it allows other people to be like, oh yeah, actually I can be me and I can do the things that I want to do as well. And it's possible. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Would you like to incorporate in more educational parts to the likes of your farm at this moment in time, or is that something that's way, way in the future? Or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I suppose Open Heart Farm was born of a vision much bigger than vegetables. I guess the mission is really to create a place where people find well-being through connection with nature. Um, and phase one of that has been vegetables. That was kind of the easy start, grow the vegetables. I didn't have to be very public, didn't have to be out there hosting a group. You grow the vegetables, sell the vegetables, and keep it all low key. And I guess as my confidence has increased, so too has the feeling that actually now it is time to move into the next phases of giving those opportunities for people to connect with the land through actually being on the land, whether it's through doing growing your own thing that I do every so often. Those kind of opportunities where people can get their hands in the soil, can sit around the fire, can be on the land, are the real vision and mission for Open Heart Farm. So yes, and it takes time, when you realize you start out at the beginning, you're like, oh yes, I'm gonna do this, and then you realize, oh, I need kind of infrastructure, at least a little bit. And that takes time and energy to create so that you can bring people to spaces.
Yeah, I suppose with your own, using yourself as your own best example, what are the struggles that you've seen yourself, whether it's in women farming or just setting up the production that you currently do have, or anything else in between?
Yeah, I think the kind of the biggest challenge was the initial not really realizing the amount of physical work to actually bring something into fruition. So it takes a lot of physical work. Like you can have an idea in your mind and then the place between the idea and the actual thing being a thing in the real world, there's effort involved there. So I guess that was probably one of the kind of things like, okay, I really need to like put me back into this and give it a lot of energy. And yes, the rewards are great, but it does take a lot of energy to go from idea to this is a real thing, it's a real place. Open Heart Farm is a thing, you know. And then there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of balls to juggle when it comes to horticulture with lots of different crops. There's a lot of marketing needed, you know. So suddenly I was pulled from not my easy job. I wouldn't say it was easy, but from that one kind of structured role to now this like 50 different roles with 50 different places to put your attention. That was probably the biggest change for me. And I'm still learning. And I would say that this journey has probably given me the most opportunities to grow personally and to challenge myself and evolve, that maybe staying in a role that I wasn't fully happy in wouldn't have given me. You know?
Are the things that you would, say, pass on to other people that you've massively learned yourself, who would like to either start a little bit of a growing community wherever they may be based in Ireland? Because there will be listeners of this all over Ireland, definitely from Donegal all the way down to the south.
Yeah. Start. I know. And it sounds so simple, but like I spent years in my mind getting ready. Right now, all of that was valuable and it was important, but until I took that first step, nothing actually happened. So it is about that first step. Maybe that first step for you is talking to someone who's like-minded. I mean, like, oh, what do you think about this idea? That might be your first step. Go do it. You know, it might be starting something, going to a course that you're interested in, being like, oh, maybe I'll have a little, see what this is all about. I don't know what it's about, but I'll give it a go. It's about that first step of doing. That's really, really important and hard. But you have to start with doing that first step. It sounds easy, but
yeah,
it's necessary.
Can't harvest a crop without sowing the seed. I absolutely love that, running that on.
Absolutely not. Doesn't work like that.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, Michelle, where's the best place for people to, I'm going to say, find, and where are you selling your produce? Fill me in on that.
Yeah. So I sell direct to customers. So people can order. I have a little order form. They order, and then they have different collection points during the week around the local area. So I have been really blessed to have some lovely collaborations with some local businesses. So there's a town coffee company in Mitchelstown, Fitzgerald's Butchers in Fermoy, the Square Garden in Kilworth, and they offer opportunities to collect at their places. For me, that's amazing. That's a beautiful community connection as well. You can catch me at Killavull Farmers Market, and then I have a few little retail options as well. And then if you're looking kind of to keep an eye on what's happening with Open Heart Farm and how we're growing and expanding, I'm on social media. So Instagram and Facebook are my two kind of places to catch me and see what's happening. And I do try and post regularly. Not so much just what I'm selling. I guess I'm here to share the journey. I'm here to share what it is to be connected to the land and how we can all do that.
Yeah, Michelle, you're an absolute pleasure to have on the podcast. All right. So I'll be putting all those in the likes of the show notes so people can nearly click. And if they're ever passing, if you're not from that area, most certainly definitely try and keep an eye on her social media pages. She does have open days, and we were lucky enough as a part of the retreat the weekend to come in and see, and one of the few people that have her lovely site, and how she's really going from strength to strength, from plot to plot, from harvest to sowing to weeding to back to harvest to sowing, weeding, because it never stops. It never ends.
True.
Michelle, is there anything else that you want in a real
pleasure?
Yeah, is there anything else that you want to mention before we just kind of wrap it up here today on our things that we've touched on, whether it's farming, whether it's growing, or anything else that you would love to share with the listeners of this podcast?
Yeah, I think we've had a wide-ranging conversation, and I guess the message really that I feel is important to share is that the more we connect with where our food comes from, the more we connect and spend time in nature, the more we notice our environment around us, the more connected we become. And that's where we find well-being.
Such a massive point.
That's it.
Oh my God. I couldn't have literally teed you up any better than that, right? Thanks so much, Michelle, for coming on. I always end these podcasts by saying, stay tuned, stay classy, and keep it organic, and get on that good stuff.